Welcome back to Fl'AwesomeBlossom. My name is Kiki and I am very excited to be with you here today. Thank you so much for joining me into the little corner of whimsy that I have carved out from my den. I am excited to see you, my best buds and my seed sowers. My Patreons, I really do appreciate you and all the love and support that you are giving me. If you would like to become a Patreon, you should pop on over to Fl'awesomeBlossom.com. Check out our blog over there, join our blossoming community, and donate. Sign up. Why not? Support me, support meliorism, and let's bring this to the forefront. All right? All right, my blooming blossoms. I am very excited to tell you that we are going to be working on a project. In 2 weeks' time, I am going to be dropping a big announcement on this project. Right now, we're dotting a few I's, crossing a few T's, and things are working towards this thing. I'm really excited about it. I can't tell you too much about it right now, but please come back. Join me in 2 weeks and I will make this great big announcement. In the meantime, I'm going to plan and plot away and let me know. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think my project is? What do you think I got cooking? Let me know. Let me know in the comments below. All right, let's get into today's episode. I want to talk to you a little bit about my particular style of communication. So as you know, TV was pretty much my nanny. Maybe you don't know that, but it really was. I grew up in a family that had some strife, and from a young age, my parents were fighting. So from my young age, my parents were fighting, and I was often shooed out of the way, told, go watch TV, go to your room, read a book, do whatever. And I gotta tell you, I've always been a sensitive little monkey, okay? I knew my parents were fighting, and I would do a lot of micro self-harm things to interrupt their fights. So I used to pick my lips a lot until they bled. If I had a wiggly tooth, I would work at it until I could rip it out, and the more blood, the better, because if I was bleeding when I went to interrupt my family from fighting, then the fight would stop and all attention would be on me until whatever was taken care of. But then my parents would go back to fighting. But anyway, the point is, I would do this behavior and then my parents would always be like, go watch TV, go read a book. And so I did. And so I grew up on a heavy dose of television and a lot of books. I read a lot of books. I read The Hobbit. I read the Lord of the Rings series. I read the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. I read a lot of Jane Austen. I did my fair share of reading. But the point I want to make with that is I was escaping. I would escape into books. I would escape into movies. I would escape into the TV. And then as part of it would just sort of come into my speech, almost like an expectation that everyone else has been having the same amount of exposure to these television programs or these particular books. That's not always the case, right? Especially now as I'm older and where I happen to live in the world. And yeah, I'm in Canada, so we're a melting pot. But in my particular neck of the woods, there's a lot of different ethnic groups. And I've had conversations with people who are from the Philippines when I mention oh yeah, blah, blah, this movie reference, blah, blah, blah. And they just crickets. They don't know what I'm talking about because it's a North American pop culture reference that they've never experienced. Now, sometimes my pop culture references are done on purpose. I did drop the Blues Brothers reference in the David and Goliath Part 1 because it fit, it works. And if you know that cult classic movie, that would have been a funny little moment for you. And if you don't know that movie, then it would probably been a little confusing, a little blip of what is she talking about? But anyway, I am aware that a lot of people don't know all of the books or all of the pop culture references that I have. but it's not stopping me from making them. And some of them are really obvious that people do know. So as a good example of this, I will tell you that I often tell a story about when my husband and I went camping a few years ago. We were on this camping adventure, and we had our little Wheaton with us. It was the Wheaton's first camping adventure without another dog. So he was the sole dog, and he had to do all the dog things. And I guess he just didn't get the memo that dogs are supposed to bark at bears or like to be the early warning system. Anyway, my husband and I have a bear encounter on this camping trip on a hike that we were on. And as I tell the story, I always say this part, right? Where I'm telling like I'm leaving, I'm in fight, flight, or freeze. And in this instance, I'm in flight. Like my body just can't even stay there. Like my legs were just taking me out of the scenario. But I always say this part, like my husband Indiana Jones'd back for his hat. And I think you know what I mean when I say that. Have you seen those movies? The Indiana Jones series? There's like 3 or 4 of these movies. And in every single one of these movies, he has a moment where his hat comes off in the middle of a very dramatic, almost typically life-threatening scenario. And he goes back for the hat and he almost dies. But every time he just lucky, he gets the hat and nothing bad happens to him. And that's the same in this scenario. My husband went back at a time when the bear was at the height of its danger. Like it was about to cross the small body of water and come and get us. We heard the kersploosh. He was prancing and pouncing on the other side of this lake shore. And I want you to know, this isn't a big lake. It's like crossing the room. It's not a huge lake. Like this bear was just on the other side of the water, literally 50 meters away from us. And he was mad and he was pouncing, and these logs were rolling down into the water. And it looked like the bear was considering going into the water, swimming over to come and confront us. And that's the moment that my husband goes down and gets his hat. Anyway, it ends up being a consequence-free encounter. I mean, look at me. I'm fine. I'm not mauled by a bear, and neither has my husband been mauled by a bear, and neither was our little Wheaton. And now he has a Malinois friend. So when we go camping, our little Wheaton leaves all the barking up to the Maligator. Anyway, that's fine. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. When I tell that story, I use that pop culture reference, and most people know what I'm talking about. Now, I am aware. I'm a woman in my 50s, and I have a North American consumption of movies and music and all of this sort of stuff. There's been some foreign influences, that's for sure. I mean, you've heard me speak un petit peu français. I can also sprechen ein bisschen Deutsch, but I don't read a lot of books that are coming out of these countries. I don't often read foreign novels, although I did read Captain Corelli's Mandolin, which was amazing and originally written in Spanish. But it is through my lens and my life experience and the pop culture that I have consumed that I am using those references. So I am aware that sometimes it doesn't land. As an example, when I was a massage therapist, I used to have a patient whom I miss, but I used to have this person come in, and this person was my last patient of the week, last patient of the day, and last patient of the week. And that appointment for this individual was always on that day of the week, always on this time. And because he's a little bit older than I am, I used to say to him, after every session, I would say, all right, I'll see you next time. Same bat channel, same bat time. That's a reference to the 1960s Batman that was on TV. That's how they would end their series. We'll see you next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. Or maybe it was time and channel. I'm not sure exactly. But he got it because that fit into his life experience. Then I started seeing a patient was coming to see me on a particular day, first thing in the morning, and like this person's appointment time would change between either 8 a.m. or 9:15, but often in the morning. And I found myself, because this person had had 8 a.m.s quite in a row, I said, I'll see you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And this person was in their 20s, and they're like, what? What do you mean? What are you talking about? And of course it didn't make any sense to this person because they had no experience with this, right? So that was an odd thing for me to say. And she just sort of was like, oh, that's weird. And then I said it 2 more times before she was like, I don't know what you're talking about, right? And then I was like, oh yeah, of course not, because your lived experience is not anything like that. But anyway, I'm aware it can be sometimes shocking and sometimes a little bit strange. But I want you to know that sometimes I do it on purpose, like the Indiana Jones thing. I want you to feel that emotion, that excitement, the danger, all of it. I want you to get that. And then sometimes I just do it because it's habit for me. Same bat time, same bat channel. And although it's fun for me, it might not be fun for you. This happened within my marriage, right? Talking to my husband, like we were walking our dogs. We always go by the school, and we were usually walking our dogs in around the same time after work, so around 5:30, 6 o'clock. And we started seeing an individual come to the school. And this person would go into the schoolyard, into the field, and they would look up into the sky. Now at first, because this person looked Middle Eastern, I kind of joked, oh, they're praying to Mecca. Like maybe that's it. But they didn't have a prayer mat, and they weren't getting down, and they weren't bowing, and they weren't doing the actual prayers to Mecca. So after a couple of weeks of me saying, oh, he's here for Mecca, I swapped it out, and I started calling this person, oh, there's Ford Prefect in the school again, looking up for the Volgons. And my husband's like, what? Who? What? And I had to explain to him, oh yeah, that's from Douglas Adams in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There was an alien who had come to Earth, and he took an Earth name, and he took the most popular name at the time, which was Ford Prefect. And that's because he didn't realize that the name was for a car and not a person. And in the book, when we were first introduced to Ford Prefect, he is constantly looking up at the sky because he is an alien on Earth, and he's hoping to hitch a ride with an alien ship going past Earth. And because this individual in my monkey sphere was going to the school, this person was looking up, and I was seeing him almost on a daily basis, I just started referring to him as Ford Prefect because he was doing the behavior that I thought this fictional character was doing. And my husband had never read the books. So he's like, I don't understand this reference. What are you talking about? And I had to explain it to him. And then I just showed him the book that I have in the bookcase. And I'm like, you should probably read this. It'll help with multiple things, multiple communications. But this is how I communicate. And I do understand it can be a niche market there. I get it. You have to have a certain age and a certain cultural experience. But my pop culture references are from all over the place, right? Like I say a lot of Monty Python stuff because I grew up with a lot of British humor. And it's just the way it is. I drop Shakespeare a lot because, I love him and he's still popular culture. Is he popular culture? Yes, he is. He was popular when he was alive, and he remains popular today, right? There are Shakespeare festivals that happen yearly in different places in the world. That's how much we love Shakespeare and how we are keeping him in popular culture, right? Plus, there are lots of lessons we can learn from those plays. Good lessons and bad lessons. So that's me just explaining a little bit of how I talk. I'm sure you saw a few of those references in the David and Goliath stuff. And I'm not always going to be doing religious stuff. Like the next story breakdown we're going to talk about is 1001 Arabian Kniggets. No, not kniggets. Knights. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Anyway, next time. So, until next time, I hope you are out there living your life in full-on blossom. Communicate with the people around you, even in your own unique style. And you know what? If you're having miscommunication, that's an opportunity for you or the person who's not understanding you to come up, bring it up. Hey, I don't get it. Hey, I don't understand. And then you can work on your communication. I'm not saying that pop culture references are important for communication. In fact, it would be better if you came up with your own words to describe things. But sometimes if there's already an established amount of emotion and thought and like a concept, like the Indiana Jones thing, going back for his hat, that one got my point across a lot more than, I can't believe my husband went back for a $30 Under Armour hat that means nothing. Anyway. All right, my blooming blossoms, this is truly it for today. I will see you next time.